What salt a thyroid patient should eat? Should they eat iodized salt or should they eat the non-iodized salt? This is a very common question. Do you have that question as well in your mind? If yes, then stay tuned with me. We are going to discuss what salt a thyroid person should consume. Namaste. My name is Dr. Tanvi Mayur Patel. I am an endocrinologist, thyroid specialist doctor from Mumbai, India. I see a lot of patients of the thyroid and they have two common questions. The first question is, doctor, is my thyroid imbalance has happened due to the kind of a salt I consume? And second, since now I have a thyroid problem, what salt should I consume? Well, these questions are not only asked by my patients in my clinic, but I've also got many comments asking me to highlight this topic. So for all of your information, I have made this special video for you. So stay tuned with me and we are going to discuss in detail. By the way, if you want to watch this video in Hindi language, then on the I button there is a link. You can click on that link and this video will be played in Hindi language for you. अगर आप इस वीडियो को हिंदी भाषा में देखना चाहते हैं तो ऊपर आई बटन पे एक लिंक है, उस लिंक पे आप क्लिक करेंगे तो आपको इस वीडियो हिंदी भाषा में मिल जाएगा. So first let's understand what is a iodized salt. See, iodized salt are nothing but a regular salt, but they have been fortified with the iodine. So when a regular salt is sprayed with the potassium iodide or sodium iodide, the salt what we get is the iodized salt. By the way, nowadays the most of the salts which are available in the market, they are all iodized salt. Many of these salts contain a dextrose. Now dextrose is a stabilizer. It prevents the oxidation and evaporation of the salt. Few of the salt also contains a calcium silicate, which is an anti-caking agent and which prevents the clumping of the salt. This iodized salt, it tastes similar to a regular salt and it looks also very similar to the regular salt. So that is nothing but a iodized salt. Now let's understand why the iodization process should be done. Why government pays more attention to that. Now, this iodization, the fortification process has started in many countries from the year 1924 and this is called as a Universal Salt Iodization, USI. In India, after the 1950, the government of India has made it compulsory for most of the salts to be iodized salt. In fact, there are many states in India who prohibits the sale of a non-iodized salt. Now, why is that so? Why is the government taking so much interest in iodization of the salt? So let's understand that. See, in our neck, we've got a thyroid gland. This thyroid gland makes two important hormones, T3 and T4. To make these two hormones, you need a right balance of the iodine mineral. If your body does not have a right quantity of iodine, it will not be a very good for your thyroid health and your thyroid will go in the imbalance and you might develop a thyroid diseases like a hypothyroidism where your thyroid works less than the requirement. You can also end up getting a goiter, which is nothing but a swelling of the thyroid gland. Now, why are these diseases that prevalent and why are they so important for the government? See, understand your thyroid hormone is a very important for your physical and a mental development. So, if you do not have enough of iodine and a thyroid hormone, you can land up into such problems. And this issue happens more in the reproductive age group women from 18 to 30 years of age, in a pregnant women, in a lactating breastfeeding mothers and in a children. So if they don't have a right amount of the iodine, their thyroid will not function properly and then they can land up into physical development issues or a mental development issues. No country wants that their generation, their population is a physically or mentally disabled. That is the reason why all the governments take a very active interest and make sure that their salt is iodized. In fact, after the iodization has begun in many countries, in the past there used to be areas which used to call as a goiter belt areas, and these areas used to be on the hilly region, and because those people used to not get a right amount of the iodine, the thyroid diseases were very common. After the iodization process has been successful, most of these goiter causing belt areas has been reduced quite significantly, and all the mental developmental issues and physical developmental issues which used to happen due to iodine deficiencies has been reduced quite significantly. That's the reason why all the country governments take an active interest in the salt iodization. Now let's understand, why is a salt selected? Why don't the government select any other food ingredient like a rice or maybe a flour or a oil? There are many reasons behind that. Let's understand from the government point of view. So the first of all, they have to select some food ingredient which is consumed by everybody, and salt is one of that. To do the iodination and the fortification, the amount of the salt, sodium iodide and potassium iodide requirement is very less. So it becomes very cost effective for the government. At the same time, the salt has a very long shelf life. Salt itself is a preservative, and because it has a long shelf life, it does not spoil. Another reason is that since the salt is consumed by the most of the people, the main agenda to reach out to the right iodine is fulfilled. Another reason is that iodized salts are very easily available in any part of the country. Even if it is a small village, all the food grocery stores keeps the salt, and that's how to reach out to the masses and the public is very easy. At the same time, these iodized salts are not very expensive. So even a poor person can consume this iodized salt at a very minimal and a nominal cost. At the same time, most of the people have a very right and a predictable quantity of the salt consumption per day. It is not that today you are going to consume in more and tomorrow you will be consuming in a less quantity. And because of the predictability of a daily consumption, it becomes easy to maintain a right balance of the iodine on a day-to-day basis. At the same time, it's very easy for this iodized salt to be transported from one place to another place. Another important point is that this iodized salt is very easily digested and very easily tolerated by most of the people. There are very few incidences wherein people will develop any kind of an allergic reactions. So keeping all these parameters in mind, a salt is a right candidate for the iodination fortification. Alright. Now let's understand what are the benefits and functions of the iodine in your body. Well, the functions are many. I am going to discuss pertaining to our topic. So the first important function of the iodine is that it is very important for your thyroid health. So if your thyroid is in the correct range, you will be preventing from many thyroid diseases. Second important function is that there are two heavy metals like a mercury and a lead. These two heavy metals have a very negative impact on your thyroid health. What iodine does is that it reduces the effect of these heavy metals, and that's how it protects your thyroid gland. Third important function of the iodine is that it makes sure that you have a very good bacteria in your intestine. It reduces the multiplication of the harmful bacteria. Now see, thyroid disease, besides being an iodine related issue, another very common reason of thyroid diseases are autoimmune diseases. Now most of our immune system is located in our intestine. So intestinal health and intestinal right kind of a bacterial flora is very important. And iodine does that job beautifully, and that's how it prevents you from getting any thyroid problem. Another thing is that when you are in the reproductive age group, at that time, if you have a iodine deficiencies, you will tend to have more of a thyroid problem. and that can lead you into developing thyroid health problems, and that can cause difficulty for you to conceive. Another problem which can happen, especially if you are a pregnant woman, at that time if you are iodine deficient, then you have a high chances of having a repeated miscarriages, and you will also, your baby can have a difficulty in having a right kind of a growth and development. Iodine is very importantly needed for the newborn baby's brain and a bone development also. Most of the time, the thyroid problem also happens when your body undergoes into hormonal shift, and a pregnancy is one such hormonal shift. So when you are pregnant, at that time if you don't have a right balance of the iodine, you tend to have a more thyroid related health, and which can be detrimental for your pregnancy and the future outcome of the pregnancy. Another thing is that when you have delivered a child, and if you are breastfeeding women, at that time also a mother needs a right balance of the iodine for the newborn baby's good quality of the milk. Another thing is that when you're a small child, at that time if you don't have a right amount of the iodine, they are more prone to get congenital thyroid problems, and another thyroid problem called as a cretinism, and in which their physical and mental development can be compromised. To avoid all that, you need a right balance of the iodine. That's the reason why you need a right balance of the iodine. Now, how much iodine do you need that? See, the iodine requirement varies as per your age. If you are under 6 years of age, you need a 90 microgram per day. If you are between 6 to 12 years of age, you need a 120 microgram per day. If you are 12 plus of your age, then you need a 150 microgram per day. And if you are a pregnant or if you are lactating mother, your iodine requirement can go up to even 250 micrograms per day. Alright, so this is the right balance of the iodine you should be having. Now let's understand, where do you get the iodine? See, the sources of the iodine are very limited, and they are mainly limited to all the seafood related products. So any food items which you obtain from the sea has a good amount of the iodine. So besides a iodized salt, you can also get a good amount of iodine from a seafoods. Like you have a salmon, you got a tuna fish, lobster, crabs, prawns, they all have a good amount of the iodine. Besides that, there are certain vegetables which we obtain from the sea, and they are also contains good amount of the iodine, like a kelp is one example. Many people eat sushi, which is actually a Japanese food. In that we use a nori sheet. So this nori sheet also contains a good amount of the iodine. By the way, nowadays in the market you get a dried seaweeds also, which you can also obtain for your iodine requirement. Besides the seafood, you will also get a good amount of iodine in a dairy products like a yogurt, then cheese, then paneer, butter. These also contains a good amount of iodine. Egg yolk also contains a good amount of the iodine. So these are all a good food which you can include for your iodine. As I told you, the easiest source is the iodized salt. Alright. Now let's understand how much salt you need. See, how much salt you need is more important than what salt you need to eat. See, in a day-to-day life, a healthy adult needs around 3 to 4 grams of a salt per day. And if you use iodized salt, so 1 gram of iodized salt has a 50 parts per million. So if you are consuming 3 grams of salt per day, so 3 into 50 gets a 150 microgram of a salt of iodine, which is your daily requirement. So if you are consuming around 3 to 4 grams of the salt, iodized salt is a right salt. The moment you increase your salt intake, you will not only increase your iodine intake, but you will also increase your sodium intake, and that can contribute to many other health problems, and a high blood pressure or a water retention is one of it. So salt consumption is also very important. In our modern daily lifestyles, we do get many hidden sources of the salt, and they all come from all the processed meal which is available in the packets and in the cans. So biscuits, papad, pickles, all of they contain high amount of a salt. And since they use iodized salt, you indirectly increase more and more of your iodine intake also. Alright, now let's see what salt a thyroid imbalance patient should have. Now see, again it depends at what stage of the thyroid imbalance is and what is the type of your imbalance. If you are developed a thyroid disease due to iodine deficiency, then using a right amount of the iodized salt is a good option. Secondly, if you are a pregnant woman and if you are lactating mother, at that time if you have a thyroid problem, again at that time having a iodized salt is again considered a safe and a good option. Alright. Another thing to keep in mind is that if on a day-to-day you are eating lot of seafoods, okay, every day around 2 to 3 portions per day, at that time if you take a less iodized salt or a non-iodized salt can be okay. But it is very difficult for people to have a 3 portions of a seafood in a day. So at that time a right balance of the iodized salt is again a very important. Now many a times the people have a question in their mind that if I am having a thyroid problem, how can I prevent it for my other family members? Now see, since the thyroid problem has also a genetic predisposition, so of course you can try to prevent it. Now what are the tips to keep in mind? I have made a special video for that. If you want, you can watch that video after this so you will understand more in detail. Now, so if you have a family member who has a hypothyroid problem, at that time using a iodized salt is a good option. Alright, so do include iodized salt in your diet. Another point to be kept in mind is that if you are taking any medicine which contains iodine, like in example amiodarone. Now amiodarone, many people use it for their heart problems. They contain high amount of the iodine, so that can also contribute to thyroid problem. Another, if you are repetitively undergoing a radiological procedures which involves the use of the iodine containing dye, again you will have a iodine imbalance and that can also contribute to your thyroid imbalance. So do keep these points in mind and work upon that accordingly. Another question is Himalayan rock salt, is it good for thyroid imbalance? Now see, again it depends. See, Himalayan rock salt, it's a natural salt, okay. It also contains iodine. However, the quantity of the iodine is very less. So if you are taking other iodine food sources, then in that case you can very well include this salt in your diet. But if you think that your diet does not contain the other food sources, then in that case sticking to a iodized salt would be a good option. But of course you can use these salts occasionally, especially if you are having any kind of a salads or a raita, okay, you can definitely use that. You can use these salts as also as a table salt. Alright. Now another very important point I would like to discuss here, okay, since we are talking about this topic, this is a very interesting article which I came across and which was published in the Harvard Medical School, USA. So I am just taking few important points from that article. Now, due to our modern lifestyles, the people not only consume the salt in their day-to-day life, but they also consume high amount of the salt from this processed food. And due to that, on an average, the person consumes nearly around 5 to 6 grams of a salt per day. And if all of this salt is, if it is iodized salt, then in that case your salt contains nearly 5 into 50, 250 to 300 microgram of iodine, which is nearly a double the quantity of the daily requirement. So if you are going to consume more of these processed food, you are going to indirectly increase not only your salt intake, which can contribute to the blood pressure issues, but can also contribute to a high iodine induced thyroid problems also. And that can also be one of the reasons why in a modern lifestyle and in a major metro cities we see more and more thyroid imbalances. As I told you earlier that a right quantity of iodine is important. If you take a higher than the requirement, then that can also be a detrimental, and in fact high amount of the iodine can also induce more and more autoimmune system diseases, and thyroid is one of it. So next time when you buy a packet of any food item, think twice before you eat. It's not only going to make you fat, it's also going to make you unhealthy, and it's also going to increase your blood pressure and also increase your chances of having a thyroid problem and a heart problem. So do keep these points also in mind. So in short, I have just discussed with you that what kind of a salt a thyroid patient should have. There is no definite yes or definite no answer, but yes, a right amount of iodine is the key. So if you think that you are getting this right amount of iodine from other food sources, then in that case, you can very well take a non-iodized salt. But if not, then do stick to the iodine containing salt. Again, a quantity is very important. A 1 pinch of salt can give you many other diseases, so use your salt wisely and correctly. Alright, so that's what we discussed today. If at all you found some good information after watching this video, do click on the like button. If you have not subscribed to my channel, there's a bell icon. You can press there and you can subscribe to my channel. So as and when I publish a new video, you will be instantly notified for that, and you will not miss out on an important health related information. If you have any questions pertaining to thyroid, leave your question in the comment box. I try to read all the questions and answers as early as I can. We will meet again in our next video with some new interesting point and topic. Till then, take care and namaste.